Welcome to the IDP Guys, soon to be IDP Plus Mock Draft Monday show. I'm your host today, Ricky Rodrigue. You can find me on X/Twitter at Ricky Rodrigues. Oh, I'm sorry, no, Ricky Rod 66. Um, I'm joined today by some outstanding colleagues who are going to help us with today's mock draft, and we'll tell you more about that mock draft in a moment. But I'm going to let these fine gentlemen introduce themselves. And first, we're going to start off with JJ.
Hey, I'm JJ Wenner. You can find me on Twitter at JJ Wenner. Happy to be here doing these mock draft Mondays with IDP Plus. It's a great group of guys, and I'm looking forward to taking a peek at some rookies today.
Outstanding, JJ. Thank you. Joe.
Hello, hello. I am Joseph Harlow. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Jolo63. Excited to do another one of these mock draft Mondays with some spectacular fellas. And yeah, excited for some rookies. This is my time to shine. Love this season. Let's do this.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen Joe's article on our IDP Guys website where he did an NFL mock draft, it's really a great article. Encourage everyone to go and read that. It is not behind the paywall. Steve
You
H.
dropped out there for a second, Ricky.
Oh, sorry about that. Steve H.
I'm Steve H. My Twitter handle is IDP Hunter. You guys can find me over at the Fantasy Six Pack, and also here over at IDP Guys. And I'm an ECR ranker over on Fantasy Pros.
Right. Thank you, Steve. And Steve G.
Hey, I'm Steve Scholes. You can find me over at Twitter or X at Big Steve FF. I just got back from the Senior Bowl, so I'm excited to do some mocks.
Nice.
Outstanding. Look forward to hearing some of those tidbits here as we sprinkle through the rookie draft here, and which will tell you more about everybody more about that in a moment. And last but certainly not least, my cohort in crime on the Start Sit show that we do weeklies. If you smell what the mock is cooking, Sean.
I needed a little more electricity out of you. I needed a, if you smell, I needed all that, but it didn't happen. So anyway, Sean Teague here. You can find me at Sean8386. I knew absolutely nothing about these rookies, so this should be fun.
Oh, all right. And it'll be interesting to see if your fellow drafters put the mock bottom on you. The rock bottom move, mock bottom. Okay. Producer Andrew's just shaking his head like, oh man, he's just not happy with that one. Okay.
From all the death stuff.
So he is absolutely dying right now. Okay, so today's draft is going to be a rookie mock draft, as you probably picked up on. It's going to be a one quarterback only, and it'll be PPR. It is a redraft, so this is, this is with a dynasty intent in mind. So let me clarify that. This is with a dynasty intent in mind. 2 rounds, 12 teams. So we're going to pick a total of 24 offensive rookies here. And that is the game plan for this mock. In terms of pick order, Sean is going to have picks 1 and 7. JJ will have picks 2 and 8. Joe will have picks 3, 7, and 11. Yours truly will have number 4. Steve G will take picks 5 and 10. And Steve H will pick 6 and 12. Now, some interesting things that I'm looking forward to seeing in this offensive rookie mock draft. The order of wide receivers after number 1. I think there's a kind of a consensus number 1, obviously, but there's a little bit of debate on numbers 2 and 3. And then after 2 and 3, there's a wide variety of opinions. So it'll be interesting to see what happens after that with some of those wide receivers. Which order will the quarterbacks go off the board? I have a feeling Well, we have a few people that have different opinions related to Caleb Williams that are on this call here, and should he be the number 1 overall pick? And once we get past those first 2, maybe 3, will there be any others picked? And one of the other ones, this running back class is seen as not as strong as other running back classes. So it'd be interesting to see when running backs start falling off the board here. So a lot of interesting things we'll be looking at and working through here as we go through the draft. And with that, we're going to get started. Once again, a shout out to producer Andrew's going to be adding the picks to the draft board, which I'll start sharing here as well. And with that, let's get this thing going. And with the first pick of our offensive rookie mock draft is Mr. Sean.
Yeah, so I get the easy one here, right? I get the guy with the best pedigree. He can do everything. He's an all-time rookie, I think, this year. Wide receiver coming out of Ohio State, Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. Expecting big things out of this guy. He's got the name. I think he's lived up to it so far. And I mean, he plays just like his dad, I think. So he's pretty good at avoiding contact, which should lead to a long career.
Marvin Harrison has quite the pedigree indeed, with a Hall of Fame father and outstanding college work and all. So Marvin Harrison with the first pick. And with that, let's go over to JJ with the second pick.
All right, for the second pick, I know there is some debate about which wide receiver falls where, especially after Marvin Harrison. Personally, I'm going to go with a guy, even though I don't like his college. It's just a joke for Ricky. I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors. I like Malik Neighbors, 6 foot 200 out of LSU, 20 years old. Dynasty thing, maybe you get him for a little bit longer. He can win at all 3 levels. I mean, I don't know. He's not the best route runner, but the routes are effective. So I think he can sort of work on that craft a little bit and just take his game even higher. So, yeah, Malik Neighbors for me.
Yeah, that was a cheap shot at the good old Fighting Tigers from LSU. I have to admit, he can run routes quite well. I disagree with you there based on what I've seen. He plays slot and outside quite a bit. He played in both areas. So Malik Neighbors, excellent pick here with pick 2. All right, so 2 wide receivers off the board. And Joe, you are up, sir, with team 3.
I am, and we're going to make it 3 wide receivers in a row. I'm taking my wide receiver 2 overall in this class, Rome Adunes out of Washington.
Nice.
Great player. This is a loaded class. Harrison, Neighbors, and Adunes are all top 8 overall players in this class for me, regardless of position for real NFL. So this is a loaded class. This is a fun class to have a top 4 pick, really. Yeah, Adunes, big. He reminds me a lot of like a Chris Godwin, but like significantly more athletic and bigger. I'm also a Chris Godwin lover, so there's that. But yeah, he's incredible. Seen some Larry Fitzgerald comps, which that's my Marvin Harrison one, but you can see it. Neighbors as well, I think, is an incredible player. The distance between him and Adunes for me is very minimal. It's very much a flavor. I like the bigger, more physical route runner type guys, and a lot will like the more dynamic after the catch sort of players, which is a little reductive for both, but all 3 of these players are spectacular.
Okay, Rome Odunze with pick number 3 out of University of Washington. All great picks. All should have bright futures from a dynasty perspective. Now I've got team 4 with the next pick here, and I must admit, in hindsight, maybe I should have slotted myself in a different area, because this is where it can get tricky on here. You can make an argument for the top tight end on the board. The one thing that bothers me about that tight end pick, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes, is he had that tightrope surgery. And there's been a couple of instances where people have done that tightrope surgery that their explosiveness didn't return quite as fast. So that has me a little bit nervous about picking him here. And as a result, I'm going to go with another wide receiver, a wide receiver who had 68 catches for nearly 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns to lead the NCAA this year. Big physical specimen. And it is not because it is a homer pick. I think this gentleman has a bright future. And one of the things that I liked about him was there was this one play in a LSU game I watched, so I'm really giving it away now. And producer Andrew has already put it on the screen before I even mentioned the name. But LSU had the ball in the left hash marker on their 15-yard line. He was out wide right. The play is going down the left sideline, and he just went flying down the field, trying to catch up on a diagonal angle and laid a block to get and I wish I could remember which player, if it was Jaden Daniels or Josh Williams, I can't remember which one, to let them get the touchdown from 85 yards. And that just showed me so much about his heart and character as well. So with that, I'm going with Brian Thomas from LSU as the 4th pick of the draft. I know it'll be interesting. I know there'll be some discussion about that a little bit later. Okay, Steve G, pick 5.
Well, you just kind of previewed my pick there. I think that at this point, I've got to take the top tight end. When he was 18 years old, he started for the Georgia Bulldogs. He stepped in and really just dominated from his freshman year through junior year. He did have surgery this year. It did cut his season short. But I think Brock Bowers is one of the best tight end prospects that we've ever seen. I know that people are going to get a little bit frightened of taking a tight end early because of Kyle Pitts and the whole issues we've had there as far as his usage. And it was kind of a bust pick, but I don't think that was his fault. But yeah, Brock Bowers is such a natural receiver. He's not a blocker. He's really just a bigger receiver. He's quick. He's twitchy. He's just an absolute freak of an athlete. And I think if you're picking him at 5 here, you're getting really good value.
Particularly from a dynasty perspective in now we do have more tight ends that are starting to step up from last couple of years, but this is great for dynasty as well. So Brock Bowers goes to team 5 with the out of the University of Georgia. Now we're going to go over to the IDP Hunter, Steve H, with pick 6.
Yeah, this is actually my wide receiver 4 off the board. When you're doing these drafts, we know Harrison Neighbors, we know Rome, and right in that gap, there's a little bit of interpretation. But I like guys that can go down the field, stretch for the ball. This guy here has a 72% catch radius. Vertical plays all day long with this guy. He had 146 receptions in college, 23 touchdowns. Does everything on the routing tree, and that's Troy Franklin. Like I said, this is the part of the draft where you start seeing a little bit of a drop-off, but I could actually argue he's my wide receiver 4. So this is a value pick, maybe even wide receiver 3, because there is a little bit of a gray area between Rome and Franklin, but I take Rome over Franklin.
So Troy Franklin out of the University of Oregon goes with the 6th pick of this draft. And you're right, Troy Franklin was right there with Brian Thomas and Bowers from a potential pick. And that was one of the questions I asked early on. There's lots of different flavors of wide receivers, particularly when you get past those first 3. Some people like vanilla, some like chocolate, some like strawberry. We'll see as the wide receivers continue to fall where it goes. Okay, thank you, Steve. All right, Sean, pick number 7.
Yeah, so I considered taking a running back here just to pop one off the board, but I think I'm going to wait just a little longer and stick with the wide receivers since they are still going strong here. This guy, I really liked his body control up in the air, making the catches, found him very explosive. And from Florida State, Keon Coleman. Really excited about his big play ability here.
Keon Coleman from Florida State, by the way, he's originally from Louisiana. Just thought I'd mention that. But yes, spectacular. He also returned, he also returned punts as well, and actually returned one for a touchdown. So he's got that elusiveness. He's got that basketball build. Great pick for team 7 there. Okay, let's go over to JJ with pick 8.
At this point of the draft, all the main, I guess, 1 QB targets are off the board. The big names are gone. And being that this is a dynasty, we're sort of roster agnostic because none of us have rosters to build off of. So this is where you start looking at your team needs. What do you need? I'm actually going to take Caleb Williams from USC. This is the part of the draft where I would be willing to take a QB, even if it is a 1 QB league. I think Caleb Williams is the top QB. I know there's some debate about it, but I feel like that's a solid, safe pick at this point of a rookie draft.
Caleb Williams from USC, previous Heisman Trophy winner, goes at pick 8. Great pick, Joe, JJ. Thank you there. And now let's go to Joe with Team 9.
Alrighty, I am between two guys here, but I think just going to bounce right off that one, and I'm going to go with the quarterback 1 in this class. And that is Drake May out of North Carolina. This is not to disparage Caleb Williams. Of the 5 or 6 years I've been grading players, Caleb Williams would be the number 1 quarterback I have done if Drake May was not in this class. So they're both spectacular. Caleb has the freelance, just the kind of psychotic, chaotic energy, which is so much fun to watch and incredibly infuriating at times. And Drake May right now is getting the Justin Herbert treatment, where getting over-analyzed and over-hated for having a team who had no talent on it aside from a sophomore running back. And 6 games of Tez Walker, who has his own flaws, but though he may come up later today. May is the full package. He's a great runner. He gets a lot of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert comps. To me, he is Trevor Lawrence, but with a much bigger arm. So, I think, and projecting him to be in a Washington, even in New England, I feel very good about his career prospects. Just an elite passer with that rushing upside.
So that was one of the things I was alluding to a little bit earlier, where I knew one of our panelists in particular, Joe, was a huge fan of Drake May and has him over Caleb Williams. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as the years progress. But so Team 9 has Drake May, and Team 10 will go to Steve G.
Well, I'm not from Georgia, but I'm going to take another Bulldog here. So at the Senior Bowl, the receiving prospects were really impressive. There was one guy who stood out for me. I think he's going to be a natural slot receiver in the NFL. He gets great separation, amazing footwork, and he's the type of, we're looking for players like Puka Nacua, right? Like guys who can just come in right away and contribute to an NFL offense. And I think that Ladd McConkey out of Georgia just has the intangibles to be able to do that. I think he's going to be a late first-round pick and should be able to, go to a high octane offense, like Philadelphia or Baltimore, and just help out your fantasy team from the get-go.
Ladd McConkey from Georgia. So 2 Tigers and 2 Bulldogs here in the first round. So Ladd McConkey really showed out at the Senior Bowl, was really impressive, had great several years at Georgia as well. So Team 10, Ladd McConkey, very good pick. Now we go to Joe with pick 11.
Yes. Yep. So I am going to take another receiver here, one who is probably not going this early in drafts at this point, but is actually my wide receiver 4 and is a teammate of a player I picked earlier. And that is Jalen Polk, also from the University of Washington. I think he is just an absolutely spectacular player. Not quite the athlete and size player that Roma Dunes is, but I think plays pretty similarly. Has very good hands, runs great routes, breaks a lot of tackles as well. He was 8th in the country this year in deep catches. Also was top 50 in missed tackles forced amongst receivers, which that can be a weird number with how many receivers and gadget he plays, but really the whole package. And like the Ladd McConkey pick before, I think if anyone was going to breakout in a Puka Nacua way, I do think that's not the top 3 guys. I do think it would be Polk. It's a very stylistic thing. Love the way he plays.
Jalen Polk, Team 11 from Joe. Now, what's interesting, too, that going into the year, it was really seen as a Odunze and a Jalen McMillan potentially. McMillan got hurt a little bit, and Polk really stepped up really nice this year for the Cougars and helping out Mr. Penix as well, which we'll see if he ends up going in this draft or not. Okay, rounding out round 1 will be Steve H.
Ricky, if I may, looking at the draft board, there's plenty of wide receivers on here. And more particularly, look at the size of these wide receivers. Marvin Harrison, 6'4", 205. Franklin, 6'3". Rome, 163. Keenan Coleman, 6'4". The NFL's not getting players; they're getting trees. So I'm going to throw one more tree on the board. It's a little controversial, maybe, because he's a couple picks below this, because there's a couple quality guys in front of him. But I'm going to throw you something spicy. I'm going to give you Mitchell. The reason I'm going to give you Mitchell here is he's got 55 catches on the year, 845 yards. The 11 touchdowns is something to me. He's 6'4", 196 pounds. He's going to go in the NFL, and he's going to fit in any style offense they want to give him. So for my money, give me Mr. Mitchell here.
It's a fun pick.
Donnie Mitchell from the University of Texas, from the Longhorns. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said it's a very fun pick, especially look at his national championship.
Yeah, he's at the Senior Bowl
numbers.
too. Yeah, so that might be something we can look into. But yeah, I'm trying to shake it up at the end of the round here.
All right, thank you, Steve. So let's recap round 1 for our listening audience only. And recapping round 1, our first 4 picks were Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, and Brian Thomas. Our middle 4 were Brock Bowers, Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman, and Caleb Williams. And our last 4 were Drake May, Ladd McConkey, Jalen Polk, and Adonai Mitchell. So very interesting. We have, of the first 12 picks, 9 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, 1 tight end, and 0 running backs. So will any running backs even get drafted at this point? I think we'll probably see some as we go into round 2 here. But let's start the turn, and let's go with Steve H. with pick 13.
Okay, for pick 13, I will go with the guy who's heavily talented. So give me Worthy here. I'll take Worthy on this one. Everybody's kind of had him up and down. I have him as my wide receiver 10. Some people have him as their wide receiver 5. Nothing against the guy. He's got game-changing speed. You guys know the profile on him. He's 6 foot. The rest of these guys are trees. Give me the tree trunk.
Worthy has incredible speed. His hands have been a question, and if he can solve the hands problem, that could go a long ways. But I think his hands are going to hurt him
his
here.
Player comp is
a little bit in the draft, maybe in the pre-draft process. Yep. Which is an interesting comp. Okay, let's go to Joe at pick 11.
So here there are a lack of running backs, and I'm going to change that with this one. Go with my top running back. This is a weird class. It's all really going to come down to draft capital, who goes where. There's a lot of good and solid backs, but there aren't many who seem like they have like running back 1 potential for a team, then for fantasy. So I'm going to go with the back who is injured right now, but I do think if any of these guys have the talent to be a top 12 running back in the future or a team's top running back, that is Jonathan Brooks from Texas. 2nd straight year we got a top tier Texas running back. He was behind Bijan and Roschon last year, so didn't do much. He had, I think, 6 carries last year in 2022, or 30, sorry. And then this year absolutely broke out before tearing his ACL. 1,100 yards, 6 yards an attempt. Also had 25 catches for another almost 300 yards. So dynamic receiver, explosive, powerful athlete. He's not Bijan. No running back prospect is, but I do think he is a legitimate top 40 pick before the injury. So I think he's like a tier below a Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker sort of player. But with the injury, we'll see how far he drops, because I think it was ACL and MCL, or was it just ACL? I'm not remembering that right now.
I don't recall off the top of my head for sure, Joe, on that.
I'll take a look into that after we go. But Brooks, I think, is the top most talented back in this class.
Jonathan Brooks, first running back off the board, and most people projecting him still to go late second round, even with the injury. So they, hopefully he'll be ready as they get into training camp is the expectation, and someone could get quite a steal if he comes back from that healthy. Okay, thank you, Joe. Let's go to Steve G with the third pick of round 2.
Yeah, at this point, I'm going to take the other quarterback in the big 3 here. Heisman Trophy winner and absolute monster of a player from LSU, Jaden Daniels. He also had, I believe, around 800 yards rushing. So you're getting that dual threat between the, good accuracy, good arm, and good legs. At this point in the second round, early second round, I think it's a nice pickup to add to your roster, even in a one quarterback league.
Jaden Daniels from the LSU Tigers goes with this pick here. And when he runs, it looks like he's gliding, and it'll be really interesting to see when we get to the combine if he actually runs the 40, because I expect him to be easily in that 4.4 range. So Jaden Daniels goes with the third pick of round 2. Let's go to the fourth pick of round 2, and let's go back to Joe.
Alrighty, and I did some more looking into Brooks, and it was just an ACL, just to finish that conversation. So here, this is a tough call. Could go with another running back upside shot. There's a couple wide receivers that are fun. There's another potential tight end or two. But we're going to go with a receiver, one who this is a little earlier than I think would probably take him. It really depends on how much the Senior Bowl did blow up his stock. But Roman Wilson had an insane Senior Bowl week. I think it was the thing to note with the Senior Bowl, the players like him, smaller, quicker, more slot route runners. This does the Senior Bowl, those type of drills do prop them up a little more than they really would be. So that is something to keep in the back of your mind. But there's really no denying how good he was. He was one of the best players on the field. The battles that him and Quinion Mitchell had were so much fun to watch. I can only imagine what Steve saw live. Wish could have been there to see that, but just the clips, it's fun. And if he goes to a good spot, if he goes to a Jacksonville in late second round or move back into the early third, be there with a guy like Trevor Lawrence or even a Justin Herbert and with the Chargers and be their number 2, 3 receiver, just take the top off for year 1 with the potential to grow into a little more. That would be a very awesome fit. Would be very fun. I do think he is someone to really hit the fantasy ceiling. He's not going to be there right away. He's going to be more of like how Rashid Shaheed this year was, just a deep threat as a rookie. And then this year you kind of saw him add a little more to his game. I think he's got a little more talent than that, but I think that's a mold we could see.
So Roman Wilson from the University of Michigan here with this pick. And he did have a really good Senior Bowl. Unfortunately, he didn't play in the game, but there were some great battles, and he performed extremely well. There's a piece of me wondering that, to your point, if he ends up in the right circumstance, does he become this year's Jaden Reed?
Very well could. Another Senior Bowl standout.
Okay. So producer Andrew disagrees with me wholeheartedly with the way he was shaking his head there to my right. But Joe, I would agree with you on that one. Okay, let's go with the next
It's
pick.
high
We'll
risk,
go to
that's for
JJ
sure.
with the. Yep, it is correct. Okay, JJ, 5th pick of round 2, sir.
Well, I'm a little bit shocked being one of the old dogs here that there's one running back off the board heading into the middle part of the second round. So I'm going to take a running back. Now, I'm a little bit torn. It is a PPR league. Generally, I lean on somebody who has PPR upside, receiving prowess, you could say. But But I'm going to go in the other direction. I'm going to go with a 6'2", 238-pound, like middle of America thumper, who's going to step into like an immediate 2-down role, maybe take some of the goal line carries away from a pass catching back. Somebody may be a little more electric, but I'm going to go with Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. I mean, I love the size. I love what he's able to do. I don't know. I'm looking forward to see what he can do at the next level. And I mean, as Joe was saying, it's all depending on where he lands. But I'd be excited to see what he can do.
And he just turned 20 like 2 weeks ago.
To be young again.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on to be young again, JJ.
Here.
But Braylon Allen, University of Wisconsin. Is he another Ron Dane? Does he become a Brandon Jacobs? Does he become a Derrick Henry? We'll be interesting to see. So Braylon Allen, second running back off the board here. Okay, let's go to Sean and we'll wrap up the first half of round 2. Sean.
Yeah, I like JJ's pick. He was one of them I was hoping to take here. And I do like the, is he the next Derrick Henry? Because the guy I'm going to choose, you could consider more of the Tyjae Spears mold here. I think he's a home run threat who is well at catching the ball. I think he plays faster than what his 40 time will actually show. And that out of Oregon, I'm looking at Bucky Irving.
That was the guy I was debating. I was going back and forth between.
Well, that makes me feel better. I think he'll be a fun player. Could be very explosive. Could.
There's so many running backs in this tier that are so much fun that could blow up.
Saw a few of them at the Senior Bowl.
Bucky Irving. And he did weigh in at over 200 pounds too, is what I understand.
So he has bulked up a little bit.
Is
good.
Yes, he has. Hopefully that doesn't hurt his speed and elusiveness to that point, but he has bulked up a little bit is what I understand. Okay, let's start the second half of round 2 and we will go to Steve H.
Yeah, I was gonna keep going wide receiver on this because you can go wide receiver 3-4 rounds, and you're seeing these nice sleepers come off the board like Roman Wilson, guys like Mitchell, guys. But looking at the way the draft board is, there's a lot of sweet value here and at running back. So I'm just going to join the bandwagon. I'm going to throw running back in here. I'm going to change it up. This year's rookie running back draft class. I just wrote the article on IDP guys as well, guys, if anybody wants to check that out, the audience. But this rookie running back draft class, there's really 3 guys you can debate is RB1 just based on situation. It's your flavor. What flavor do you want? And I like Brooks. I like Allen. I like Irving for different things too. But there's a guy in tier 1 still you can debate. It's Trey Benson out of Florida. I'm not really the biggest fan of Trey Benson. He's not necessarily elusive, but he runs 4.4 speed. He's highly regarded. He has the stats. I mean, I'm looking at some of his stats right now. 905 yards on 156 attempts, 14 darn touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry, and no fumbles. Some team's going to make that guy very, very happy, very, very rich.
All righty. We have Mr. Trey Benson from the Florida State Seminoles going with that pick to Steve H. And now let's go to Steve G.
So I'm going to take another Senior Bowl standout here. Obviously, there are a lot of running backs available, but I'm going to throw us back onto the wide receiver track. And I'm going to take South Carolina's Xavier Legette. This is a player that he gets the Debo comp. That's unfair. What he is a solid route runner, and he's very good at contested catches. He did struggle a little bit on day 1 of the Senior Bowl, but he bounced back, and I saw him make some very good full extension catches, just rip the ball away from the cornerback. He's got the attitude when he wants to play. He's a nasty receiver who will go and get the ball. And, at this point, he probably gets drafted in the 2nd round or so. And I think he can slot in as a wide receiver 2 in an offense and also contribute his rookie year. I think he's just got the makeup of somebody that's ready to play in the league.
Okay, Xavier Legette from South Carolina goes here. What was interesting about Legette, and what you described is absolutely true, he measured in much shorter than what he was listed in college. He was listed between 6'3" and 6'4" in college and came in a little bit over 6'1", but he still has that physicality and all that you described and those downfield capabilities. So Xavier Legette goes here. All right, I am up with team 4 here, which is the 9th pick of this round. And I'm going to go the tight end route. This person here averaged almost 16 yards a catch here in his junior year with Quinn Ewers as his quarterback, and really can stretch the seam, demonstrated really good hands. To me, clearly the second tight end in the class, and there's a little bit of a drop off from this one here. So I'm going to go with Jatavian Sanders from the University of Texas with this pick. You don't have to all say "great pick, Ricky," all at one time. It's okay. I know it. It's good. Okay.
He goes around the second
Great
round,
pick,
though, so it is a good
Ricky.
pick.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the guy I hope is going to fall.
Wait, I'm hurting my arms, patting myself on the back here with that steal of a pick. Okay. Joe, you are up with the next pick,
Can you
sir.
steal something that nobody else was taking? I don't know.
No, the tight end too here, especially if he gets top 50 capital, it makes sense. But
I was
I
going
am
to take him at 2.
Yeah, he's commonly going the end of the second, so that's a good pick.
A bit early, some would say.
Yeah, but you got to get there before if mock is cooking in your part ranking.
The mock is old, okay?
So I'm between a couple names
right.
here. There's one specific receiver that I would be looking at, and then a couple, just the bunch of running backs. But we are doing a full PPR, yes?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little off the board. Going to take a running back who I actually don't know if he's in sleeper, so if he's not, my bad. But we are going to take Dylan Laube, the running back receiver from New Hampshire. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. This is a little early, especially before draft capital, but he, I think, from what I saw, he was the best back at the Senior Bowl. And he was running some insane receiver routes.
And he leads the country in all-purpose yards, Joe.
He does.
People don't realize that.
Yep. He's the Danny Woodhead thing. It's on the nose. It's pretty true.
I wrote him as my RB10 because I thought he was going to be a sleeper, and now he's doing all this stuff. So now the article's garbage. We'll just throw it away, start a new one.
Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen. But I don't think he gets drafted on day 2. But this is an upside shot. Again, this is more just to throw the name out there. He probably will be able to be gotten mid-third round of rookie drafts. But
who's your player comp to him? Because I was struggling with that.
Again, the Danny Woodhead thing, it's like it's there. I don't think it's quite there. I think he's bigger than Woodhead, right? And I think he has a little more power. He's a little more powerful. I think the Woodhead it's the one you're gonna have that people are gonna latch
I'm just
on
so sick of always putting Woodhead or what I mean.
Yeah.
I put Cordell Patterson. I think that's cheating, so I'm trying to re-look at that.
Yeah, Woodhead, but don't feel great about it. But I think that kind of gets the idea across.
Solid.
They actually had him in the Senior Bowl running a few wide receiver routes as well.
Yes,
because he
had
displayed such great hands.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So a name that, and I'm glad you brought him in, Joe, to make sure our listening audience who maybe hadn't heard that name yet to get them familiar with it. So Dylan Laube goes here at near the end of round 2. Okay, let's go over to JJ with the second to last pick of our mock draft here.
Man, no pressure. I'm going to go with wide receiver. There was a wide receiver who I was excited about until I watched the Senior Bowl. And although some of the passes were underthrown, man, the hands of the unnamed wide receiver really I don't know. He's there in all the rankings, but I can't take him. So I'm going to go with Jamari Thrash.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe. You wanted to
No, I
say
was gonna
about
say the receiver you're talking about. I want to love him. I try so hard,
right?
But
like he does everything I want him to do except catch.
It's the draft class, though, because you can go like 15, 20 deep. And Jerry Rice's kid's like 25th on this list. I'm like, what? There's a 6'7" freak. He's 6'7", Johnny Wilson. He goes like in the 6th round. Like, there's too many receivers to choose from.
Because he's not good.
Dealer's choice. I'm just saying, as a prospect, dealer's choice.
It really is. I want to love that receiver you're talking about.
I know.
Much. I want
but you
to.
can take anybody there. It's dealer's choice at this point. Was my point, you know?
Yeah.
Well, as a dealer, wait, no, that didn't come off right.
Whoa.
As somebody who this is going to be my choice, I'm going to go with Jamari Thrash out of Louisville, 6'1", 185. Think he's going to be a slot receiver. I love slot receivers. I don't know. They high catch potential, PPR league. I don't know. That's where I'm going. I think he's really electric. I like what he can do with the ball in his hand. There's a lot of questions, but I think anybody you're getting at the end of the second round is going to have questions. And I'd rather question that than can he actually catch a ball? So
runs really good routes. I mean, you can't go wrong with a guy like that. He's going to get on field, you know?
Yep. And so JJ loves slot receivers. Okay. with
machine. How dare you? How dare you sully my good name?
What? There was just a pause there. I'm sorry, I got choked up there for a second. Okay, with the last pick of the second round and last pick of our mock draft is Sean.
Yeah, so going back to the wide receiver pool here, little torn here. Do I take a potential deep threat here, or do I take another guy with the name? I think I'm going to go with the name here and take Brendan Rice over Tez Walker was the other guy I was thinking about here. But he is a little more boomer bust, so I like Rice just for, not just namesake. I do think he's fantastic in the boundary catches and stuff like that. So he's another big dude, another tall guy. So I'm confident with that.
Yeah, during the Senior Bowl game, and they had a little bit of a kind of little story on him in between the game, and you could see the movement, and he's clearly been coached well by his dad and others and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see his measurables at the combine will be very interesting as well. So for our listening audience, let me recap round 2, then we'll come back and talk a little bit about the draft. The first 4 picks were Xavier Worthy, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Daniels, and Roman Wilson, followed by the next 4 of Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Trey Benson, and Xavier Legette, with 3 running backs in that middle part of round 2. And wrapping it up, Jatavian Sanders, Dylan Lop, Jamari Thrash, and Brendan Rice. Okay, so, Brendan Rice. Okay, so one of the obvious things that we were alluding to with the second to last pick was Tez Walker, that a lot of people wanted to love him. He certainly had some struggles. Joe, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Steve G next. Tell us about, Joe, your thoughts on Tez Walker.
I like Tez. I do. I think he has if he could catch, I would have him over a Troy Franklin even. But and he does show some moments of really good hands, but then he just does some, frankly, knuckleheaded stuff on the field. Maybe it's a thing where he did miss a significant amount of time this year due to the NCAA being a bunch of really buttholes, to be frank. But that's another conversation. But I do think he has a lot of talent. I think get him in a good scheme, good system where he doesn't have to be receiver 2 even right away. I think he could really get there, get him with a good receiver coach. And I really do think there's a lot of potential there. He was someone in the mock draft I did that you alluded to earlier, I really wanted to put in the first round because I do think he is that level of talent. there's a lot there. The Senior Bowl stuff this week was up and down, and don't want to put too much stock into that. It's a weird situation overall, but I want to love him. Like I would still take him over some other types of receivers. Like Xavier Legette, I would take Tez Walker over him every day. I don't believe in Legette. I think also another player who's very super talented, many flaws, but that's really a flavor thing. It's tough. I have him rated over Roman Wilson, who I took. He does.
Mm-hmm.
I would take him over Roman Wilson. I didn't this time, but a lot of that's recency bias from the Senior Bowl. But in the real draft, I would definitely take Walker over Wilson. But it's tough. He's definitely a dynasty pick and not a redraft pick. I'll say that.
Yeah. He's got fun
Steve
tape,
G,
you know what I mean?
He does.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, my struggles.
So
with
Steve
him
G,
do
you were down
probably
at the
come
Senior
from-
Bowl. Your thoughts on Tez Walker?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Joe's saying. I mean, the talent's obviously there. It's just focus, concentration, and just doing what he needs to do on the field. It just, it's really puzzling. But I think, I wouldn't blame you if you took him in the second round here. Or, I mean, the thing about this draft class is that it is loaded with all types of receivers. There's a ton of talent. There's a few guys that are, your tier one guys. But after that, you could probably make a debate for a ton of these guys to go from the, back of the first to, the second. It's just really wide open this year. And I like you guys were saying, it's almost like the ice cream analogy. What's your flavor? What do you want? Do you want a burner? Do you want a route runner? I mean, there are guys like Jaquan Jackson that I love, who's like a Deshaun Jackson comp. There's guys like Ricky Pearsall, who, is kind of like a Ladd McConkey light as far as his route running. So, yeah, I really like Tez Walker too, but I also understand why he wasn't drafted here.
Okay. So I do have a comp for Tez Walker. His name's Clifford Franklin. Does that name ring a bell for anybody?
I dig it. Yep.
If you watch The Replacement.
Yep.
Okay, Sean got it. Okay, so if you watch the movie Replacement,
Shane Falco's top
Clifford
receiver.
Franklin.
Good one.
I think that
Exactly. Who couldn't catch anything basically, but was fast as lightning. So if you haven't watched the Replacements movie, highly encourage you to go watch it. And we see Clifford Franklin, you may have some Tez Walker thoughts there.
that's good.
Okay, so all right, so let me ask this question. We'll go over to Sean for a second here. So Sean, were you surprised that any of the other three quarterbacks, JJ out of Michigan, Penix, Nix, were you surprised that any of those three were not picked? Granted, one quarterback, but were you surprised any of those three weren't picked, even later in the second round?
No, because this is such a wide receiver heavy class, and the quarterbacks, again, it depends on where they fall, and this just isn't a big quarterback class. I do think there is a lot of potential with guys like Penix, but with all the receivers that are coming out this year, you're going to see this in every draft. It's going to be receiver heavy.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Steve H., is there one person that you are surprised did not get picked out of these 24 picks? And if so, who?
And I'm glad you asked me that, Ricky, because I was looking, and Michael Corley to me just sticks out. I would have took him middle second.
Malachi Corley.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 92% in the slot. I mean, he's a really productive player. He usually goes in that wide receiver run. I would have took him before Roman Wilson, Legette, Thrash Rice, for what it's worth. He doesn't have the pedigree of a Worthy or of a Coleman, but yeah, I was very shocked that he was not selected. And it could be because we have more quarterbacks than I thought would have been taken. I thought one or two at the most.
JJ, same question for you. Was there someone that was on your draft board as you were preparing and so forth that you said, I'm surprised that that person didn't go in the top 24. Maybe it was a running back or a wide receiver or maybe in the quarterback. JJ?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think there's a clear top tier where everybody's going. Once you get out of that top tier, I know we made the joke about dealer's choice, but I don't know. It's sort of like ranking wide receivers in the real, like the NFL current wide receivers. Like, maybe the wide receivers 1 and 2. And when you get to that next tier, there's just a lot of guys. You can't fit 40 wide receiver 3s in. And I think that's the same thing with this draft. You have a bunch of, it's front loaded, and then you just have a lot of guys who all could be second rounders. I mean, like a Blake Corum could fit in here somewhere, right? Like, but you're not really going to know until you hear landing spot, coaching, like the offensive systems, and you're really going to see the fit that a lot of this is going to start to clear up.
Yeah, Joe alluded to draft capital a little bit earlier, and so Joe, we'll wrap up here with this final question. On the draft capital side of things, share a little bit of context and thoughts for our audience.
Just in terms of what draft capital means for these players, or just what we think
exactly
going to happen. Yeah, so obviously right now we have, like we've all alluded to with the receivers, how there's the top 3, then there's kind of what happens there. Brian Thomas Jr., for example, he's someone who some mocks I've seen him going top 12, but others he's outside of the top 20. That makes a huge difference. It's something like with Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, those types, and even Jahan Dotson in that class as well. Just if they go way higher than expected, that's going to push them up the boards. Then like my Dylan Laube pick, he's probably going to be a fourth, fifth rounder, so he's not going to be a second rounder in rookie drafts most likely. Blake Corum, as JJ mentioned, he could be the first running back taken. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And if he goes to the Chargers in the second round, he's probably going to be 6th pick overall, maybe in this. So it really just depends on where they end up going, where they're taken. If all these receivers, like there's a tier of 20 of them maybe after the top 3, which hyperbolic, but still it's like, it depends. Really, it's going to end up on where they go and who they go to. But Xavier Legette, if he goes in the first round, he's going way up. If he falls to the 4th round, which I think that 3rd round is more likely than the first round, so then that's going to drop his stock a bit. If Tez Walker, if everyone thinks he can't catch and doesn't want to touch him, he could fall to the 5th round. Like, I'd be surprised, but it's possible with how many other receivers there are. So it's something at this point, it's really just prospects we like, but it's going to change a lot after the real draft. Quarterbacks too. If a Michael Penix,
thank you, Joe,
shockingly goes in the 1st.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, well, look, thank you to my esteemed colleagues who joined today for our Mock Draft Monday, and thank you to our audience for joining us. We'll be continue to do many more of these mock drafts throughout the off season. We're going to be doing Dynasty. We're going to be doing redraft. We're going to do more rookie. We're going to do offense. We're going to do IDP. We're going to do offense and IDP. So please stay tuned and keep on checking out for our Mock Draft Mondays. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. And right now, just so that you're aware, at idpguys.org, soon to be IDP Plus, we have a special going, $1 for 1 month to check out everything about us, all our tools, all our rankings, all the great articles from a lot of these outstanding gentlemen here. The code word is mock draft for a limited time, subject to change, but $1 mock draft. Join, encourage your friends to join and check it out. And with that, we're going to call it a wrap. Wishing you all great health and happiness. Be nice to one another, and we'll see you next time for our next Mock Draft Monday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.